Hello everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard Hot Dance charts in immaculate detail with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. Okay, so I was going to originally start this off by talking in my usual opening statement about the quality of the charts this week, which to be fair, in this case it was pretty solid outside of a pretty noticeable exception that gave me a goddamn headache for multiple reasons outside of the music. But that's not the only thing that happened this week, and fair warning, what I'm about to talk about will get pretty vitriolic towards Billboard, so if you're for some reason support this company who's been making problems for years now, I'd recommend you click off now, or at least go down to the timestamp in my description if you want to skip to the actual reviews. So, just recently, a fellow YouTuber known as Pulse Planet Charts, or in the case of their old deleted channel, Billboard Top Songs, just recently got their channel completely shut down by Billboard. Most likely thanks to the fact that their paywall gimmick that they've been enforcing, especially on their old fucking Hot 100 charts, has gotten to the stage now where they're taking down creators who show those old weeks on their formats. And for me, as someone who's been following this guy since back in 2022, seeing this thing unfold was absolutely bullshit. And quite frankly, it says a lot about Billboard's complete greed and inability to adapt to modern times that they resort to taking down small independent creators who are doing this out of love for the charts and the music, rather than just stealing material from Billboard. Again, they have no reason to be doing this. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear, any respect that I had left for Billboard, which was already at an all-time low after the incident in January of this year that I think everyone should be aware about if you follow this series, yeah, it officially fucking died with this, and quite frankly, my levels of tolerance for Billboard's bullshit have reached an all-time low even further now. And let me also make this abundantly clear, this was a single guy doing all the editing and marketing for Billboard for them, with some help ironically from Talk of the Charts, who still managed to enforce what actually was counted towards a song's charting position on the Hot 100, to the point where it doesn't remotely surprise me that Billboard tapped down on an act associating with Talk of the Charts. I mean, we don't forget 2021 anytime soon, especially after all that bullshit with Rolling Stone, and quite frankly, I don't know who still looks worse in that entire scenario. And yeah, it's a completely disgusting and abusive use of power from Billboard to target a bunch of literal fucking teenagers and young adults when they're talking about something that really has no reason to get actually used in a bad way against Billboard. I mean, all this guy did was just show where the charts were in the particular week that were already available from Billboard until the following week. So really, any sort of infringement or copyright is complete bullshit with this one, and quite frankly, Billboard needs a lot of explaining to understand why they even did this. And of course, as soon as something that happens to threaten their bottom line gets done, they really resort to blatant copyright infringement bullshit policies that were outdated back all the way in 2013 and are still just as outdated even now. And of course, even despite the fact that there are numerous public figures spending crap tons of money on their highly overpriced subscription service that quite frankly was dated and out of touch years ago, and their ability to work alongside the utterly questionable, horribly headed figures of YouTube who are really taking down a lot of things, including pro-Palestine content. Yes, that's not sliding here. Yeah, it's completely fucking galling and really a showcase of how greedy this company has gotten over the last few years. Now, I'm just glad that I don't have to rely on this series to really get any sort of financial backing. I have a lot of work outside of this that I'm doing, as a lot of you probably could tell, and quite frankly, this series continuing is mainly down to my personal enjoyment of reviewing music. If it wasn't for the fact that I have other means of income, I would be a lot more angry than I actually am, which is really saying something. And considering I already have my issues with Billboard, especially after the split where they show that they do not remotely care about genres of music that don't get as much mainstream coverage in comparison to what they consider their most unique and interesting charts to talk about, including giving the fucking Hot Christian Songs chart more positions than Hot Dance and splitting the new chart into only 15 tracks, which again was a complete fucking fumbling, and they have a lot of work to really win back any sort of trust from the dance fans who follow them at this point. Yeah, if I end up being a little bit less forgiving towards Billboard and really only talk about the music on its own without any sort of acknowledgement of them as a company, you could probably understand why. And quite frankly, the reason I do this series is more to highlight music that I actually enjoy and want to talk about, rather than giving any sort sort of respect to the company behind it. Again, Billboard has issues for decades now, and I'm not the only one saying that. Again, Mark has spoken about this in length. So yeah, while the charts still show a lot more growth and are showing a lot more interest, it really does reveal a lot about the company behind it, and quite frankly, Billboard can go fuck themselves. I really hope that Pulse Plan Charts is doing well and is actually able to bounce back from this and fight against these copyright bullshit takedowns, because really we could do with more people pushing back on Billboard's bullshit, and if this doesn't inspire a real change at some point down the track with all the stupid shit that they're doing, I really don't know what is. So anyways, rants aside, and yep, Dracula by Tame Impala is still holding comfortably at number 1. Quite frankly, I don't really see what's going to dethrone it at this point. I mean, it's probably going to lose a little bit next week thanks to Halloween streaming drying up, but it's actually getting a proper radio push to pop airplay. This could end up sticking around and being a legitimate hit. I am not going to complain whatsoever. Although I will say No Broke Boys by Disco Lines and Tinashe is making one hell of a case holding steady at number 2. I mean, radio is at a point now where I expect it will stall out pretty fast, but streaming is still remarkably strong. It's holding steady in the top 40 even with all the songs returning above it for Christmas. Honestly, this could have a run of getting back to number 1 at least for a little bit until the radio falls out, but honestly it's doing remarkably well regardless. I didn't expect it would do this well, and man, I'm glad these two are just so far ahead of Miles on It by Marshmallow and Kane Brown at number 3, which even if the enforcement of the 78-week rule was a thing, this would have dodged it this week because nothing's really sticking around. Although considering a certain song lower down that will surge up for a brief time, it could very well fall victim next week. I can only hope. And interestingly, Let the World Burn by Chris Gray, Rebel and Cried stalled out completely, even despite jumping up to number 4, mostly because the streaming just utterly nosedived for this one, as it appears people have finally gotten the hint that this is absolute garbage and has no reason sticking around. I can only hope it starts to fall harder in the next couple of weeks, and while it is unfortunate that it didn't knock down Miles on It even further, it's worse than that song. Really, I'm not happy to see it here regardless. And really the only reason it jumped at all was because My Old Ways by Tame Impala just lost hard down to number 5, where it looks like the streaming momentum is falling really fast for this, and while I can see this being pushed as a new single later on, at the moment it's not really going to get there. But hey, it still managed to hold up over the day's Notion remix by Crystal at number 6, although this one might just barely return to the top 5 soon, considering that it's not really falling anywhere, especially on streaming, and considering that the UK scene seems to be having a bit of a run thanks to, again, another song lower down. I can see this maybe rebounding and surviving past 52 weeks. Honestly, that would be kind of funny in a way. Although it losing out could probably also provide a window for Victory Lap by Fred Against Skepta and Plaque Boy Max at number 7, which will probably end up getting a bit of a streaming boost next week thanks to the big singles that Fred Again's pushing right now, and honestly, considering it's the best of the 3 singles that will probably chart next week, I'm not going to complain too much. But now onto a debut that has struck the hearts and also, unfortunately, the chords of many people recently, thanks to a variety of reasons that I will discuss later on with the track itself, but really this is the sort of song that I expected would have been a massive hit regardless. I Run by Haven debuting at number 8. Now at first I was ready to call this an absolutely huge hit in the making with the sort of meteoric stream rise where I can see this actually still hitting the Hot 100 next week despite what I'm about to talk about, but that was until the last couple of days where the song got taken down officially from digital streaming platforms outright, mostly thanks to a bunch of infringement notices that are looking more and more questionable as it goes on. Now the response on all angles has been nothing short of absolutely confusing on both sides, with Haven in particular being someone that really should be called out for the lack of transparency around this song's existence, and quite frankly his response to this whole thing has been questionable at best. But yeah, it's the sort of case where I can see this surging up to the Hot 100 range next week and then falling off completely, provided that Haven doesn't reinstate it back to streaming services, which again, we have no idea what's going on. This whole thing has been incredibly vague. It's just become a complete headache for me. But for now, it did hold back Montegam Rugata by Safos, Cape and Jandro at number 9, which looks like it's actually stalling out on streaming and really only is sticking around because Tame Impala lost out. I really hope this goes away soon. And somehow we actually even got a second debut in the top 10 that's looking a lot more questionable as it goes on. Yep, it's Upside Down by Black Gryph0n and Baasik debuting at number 10. I mean, I get why it's here. It's the viral association with Has Been Hotel as well as Halloween giving this a huge boost on streaming, but considering considering that it doesn't really seem to have much in the way of staying power and the whole controversy around the artists involved, yeah, I don't really know how this is going to do moving forward. Honestly, I'll have more to say about this too later on. It's not going to be fun. But as I said, really at this point, Tame Impala saw the most considerable losses on Hot Dance this week, although it is notable that Ethereal Connection is the only dropout. The rest of his album actually stuck around another week. And also really revealing, XLxughter by Smasher and Mozzie is gone too. Another funk song that's been killed off fast, and considering that the scene is looking like it's stalling out momentum really fast with songs only really benefiting from a weak chart right now, that might be really telling and really welcome, especially in the current climate. But yeah, Tame Impala saw losses outside the top 10, and really a lot of these were to be expected considering the album's not exactly something that's been well received by a lot of people. Not My World at 23, Oblivion at 18, End of Summer only down to 16, which is actually having some decent staying power, Afterthought also sticking around at 14, and No Reply at 13. These are all not surprising. Honestly, I'm amazed that they stuck around this long. But hell, I think what's really telling is that we had absolutely no comebacks this week, and even despite the fact that Desire by Ian Asher and Ollie Alexander surged up to 15, I really have no idea where this is going to go. But honestly, other than that, really revealing that we didn't have much capitalizing on it. It's been a really dead period for the charts after Tame Impala impacted. But then there's the 5 debuts here, where some initially made me very worried. Although thankfully the first one is not one of them, being number 24, HARDSTYLE 2 by Fred Again, KETTAMA, and Shady Nasty.
Got to be HARDSTYLE, my style, hostile. Got to be.
Man, about damn time we finally got something from Fred Again actually charting after You're a Star. Now this really doesn't surprise me that he's been struggling to chart since then, considering a lot of these tracks are not exactly mainstream friendly, and his whole rollout plan of 1 track per week, which now has just become completely inconsistent at best. It's been really revealing that a lot of these were just not really songs that were going to stick around regardless. And considering that a lot of these tracks were released post shows in other countries where the cultural exchange is really noticeable, although credit to him, he's actually given KETTAMA his first charting song in the United States, a name that's been really rising in the UK garage scene as of recently, with the sort of upwards momentum that really doesn't surprise me considering that his track It Gets Better is actually doing remarkably well. Hell, it even charted in Australia for a brief bit, and to see him chart here is excellent, even if I wasn't huge on his first collaboration with Fred Again, and thankfully this is considerably better. I mean, it's more intense in its garage production with those wailing synths as Shady Nasty just yelps across the mix, where KETTAMA's more sparser atmosphere plays really well off of Fred Again's production style, where they really nailed that darker, grittier atmosphere that USB has so consistently been able to pull off. And yes, it does admittedly share a bit of production style with You're a Star, and it doesn't have the same level of manic intensity and energy that track does. It's not better than that track, and is honestly one of the mid-tier tracks in terms of releases from this USB re-release, especially when you add on that really long run time that doesn't really have enough insane switch-ups to really justify it being as long as it is. But otherwise, yeah, I like this a lot, and if it means that KETTAMA's finally going to chart in the United States, I'm not going to complain. This is great. Number 22, No BATIDAO by ZXKAI and slxughter.
Linda, perigosa, rouba meu coração. Vai quicando, vai jogando. Não perde a razão no batidão, no batidão. Só pura tentação.
As soon as I saw the Shadow AI artwork for this song, I had to really step back. I'm seriously getting sick of the sonic usage in these artworks for this genre, and considering that the majority of these tracks just completely shit on the concept of actual art in music and are just completely disposable garbage, yeah, I had no reason to be interested in this. Although I will give this credit, it's probably one of the better songs from Funk that's charted in recent memory. This mainly is because the mix feels a lot more popified than usual, with melodies that are actually not bad, and mixing that isn't unlistenable in the same way that a lot of funk songs are. I can at least give it credit there. Still not good because the scene is desperately lacking any sort of actual artistic development, and everything from the AI artwork to the utterly undercooked song structure really does not make this sound remotely good. But by the standards of this really awful scene, this surprisingly didn't annoy me as much as I expected it would. It's not good, but it could have been a lot worse. Number 21, I Want Things to Be Beautiful by Devi McCallion.
I want things to be beautiful. Forgot things could be
beautiful.
Okay, wow, this completely caught me off guard, and no, not just because of the complete mess that is the artwork for this track, which really reminds me a lot of the PC music scene, but also the names involved are a lot more interesting than I expected. For context, Devi McCallion is a transgender singer who was most well known for being a member of the band Black Gryph0n, who released a slew of critically acclaimed albums before disbanding entirely in 2024, with their 2020 album being the one that caught my interest thanks to the artwork, and has got a lot of really big critical acclaim. I'm actually kind of interested in checking it out at some points, even if hyperpop isn't really my thing. So seeing Devi McCallion cross over on her own with a song that was released not that long ago, it had me interested, and really this is the sort of track that I did not expect would cross over, but I'm really happy it's here. I actually think this is legitimately great. More of an aggressive rave cut with a lot more distorted kick drums than you'd expect, all against the grinding and metallic sounding synths that just get more aggressive as the track goes on, all centering around the spoken word vocals of Devi herself, talking about the sort of self-deprecating content, the sort of thing that you'd expect would really come out of this emo-tinged sound of electronic music, and especially considering the industrial side of the scene gets particularly dark, it doesn't surprise me that it went down this route. Honestly, I got a lot more dread and suffocation vibes out of this mix than I expected, especially as her voice just completely disappears by the end of the track, as the elements just overpower and sound increasingly menacing. It really does work well for me. I mean, I do wish it was a little bit longer. Being just shy of 100 seconds is really not great for a song like this. It could have afforded to be a little bit more developed. But yeah, otherwise I was really on board with this. It's a sort of out there song that only TikTok would really push. But honestly, in terms of the low standards I hold that side of the scene nowadays, this actually turned out way better than I expected. Genuinely great song. I'm really curious if it will have staying power. Yeah, I wouldn't mind this sticking around. Number 10, Upside Down by Black Gryph0n and Baasik.
But on the radio, his mama used to play.
When it feels like all the world is wearing a frown, put a smile on and spread it around.
With your smile, turn the world upside down.
Okay, seriously, everyone involved in this track is continuing to outperform all expectations for me, and yes, I include Black Gryph0n and Baasik there too. And really, this was the sort of track that I had a lot less reason to really support charting, for some obvious reasons if you're in the know. While Insane is still far better than it has any right to, between the complete rehashing of the formula with another Has-Been Hotel fan song, and the unsettling allegations towards Black Gryph0n that haven't really been officially confirmed, but considering all the evidence, I kind of believe that they're true, and that's really disgusting. Yeah, I wasn't really happy to see this chart at all. Now, it would be one thing if the song was outright bad, it would give me more reason to justify not giving it any further attention, but in this case, again, just like Insane, I like this way more than I really should. Yes, it's obviously ripping off the formula from Insane, including sampling the vocals from that track, which is just blatant. You could really move on at this point, but I can't deny that this has a lot better of a groove than it really needs to, with a faster tempo and a lot more complex stray elements that make it sound a lot more interesting than Insane did. And honestly, the focus on less scatting that Insane did, and the emphasis on the much more manic energy that Alistair actually conveys in the show, it really does work well here, especially when the vocalist really portrays that really well. And it really does nail that sheer madness that he feels as he faces consistent neglect and mistreatment from others around him. Probably explains why he acts the way he does in the show, and honestly, it works really well as a canon track. I can see why this has an audience. And when it doesn't even suffer from the same problems that a lot of songs in this style, or even fan music in general, has, where it tries to fit way too many references in without making a cohesive narrative, this actually does it really well. Hell, there's actually rhyming between the lines. It actually does come together as a pretty cohesive track. Look, just like Insane, I'm not going to defend this. I absolutely get how this could be incredibly insufferable for a lot of people, and again, the allegations around Black Gryph0n make this something that I'm not going to return to much at all, but really, I like this way more than I have any reason to. I don't think it's good, mind you, but it's not bad either. Honestly, it really worked for me a lot more than I would like to admit. Number 8, I Run by Haven.
Tangled up in wires, I can't catch my breath, I run. Falling deeper, I cannot confess. Drowning in the chaos, I can't catch my breath, I run.
So, here's the big one, and quite frankly I have a lot to say, and everything around this song has just given me an absolute headache the last couple of days. And really, at first, this was something that I was absolutely going to embrace, considering it had all the elements of being a massive hit. It was catchy, well produced, and with the sort of earworm vocal melody that never leaves your brain after you first hear it. This had every reason to be a smash hit across the world, and all signs pointed to that doing so, but then the controversy happened, and everything just unfolded in record time. So after this song's meteoric rise in popularity, all manner of AI allegations came out regarding the vocalist here, including some thinking that this stole the vocals from Georgia Smith. Now, Georgia Smith has come out officially saying that it's not her on this track, so I can understand where they're coming from, but after having heard the track, it really does feel like a stretch, considering it doesn't really sound like Georgia Smith at all, and all signs pointed to this being the work of Haven himself, pitch shifting his vocals up to a level where it became more feminine. Again, Porter Robinson has done this on previous albums. It's not exactly something new, nor something that I really think is impossible to do. But that's not all. Not only has Haven, aka Harrison Walker, been completely radio silent about everything regarding this song since it got popular, where the lack of transparency really has hurt this song's ability to just stand on its own, but then came the biggest controversy in the last couple of days, where the song was officially taken off of all streaming platforms, as even the UK-based chart company OCC announced that it was going to ban this song from charting on their charts, mostly thanks to copyright infringements that has not really been given any sort of further detail or explanation from anyone involved, but with some presuming that it's something to do with Sony Music, given their complete ability to just abuse copyright system into the ground, and the fact that the vocals could be perceived as something that Georgia Smith would have made and something that she would have looked into. Now, I could go on an extended rant about how the OCC completely ignores the fact that they've enabled songs that have been blatantly stolen on their charts before. I mean, seriously, we have Make Me Feel Good, or Robin Schulz's Miss You, or anything associated with funk in recent years. But really, the entire conversation around this song on both sides has been just utterly stupid. This isn't the case like Miss You, where the entire song was stolen from a smaller artist and not given any sort of credits. Nope, everything around the production here was mainly done by the producer Haven, alongside the other credited producer Jacob Donahue, where on certain versions of this track on DSPs, they're all credited as is. It makes no sense to really focus on the beat here. Realistically, the drama circles around the vocals and potentially any AI usage, and to be fair, I absolutely get it. Especially when the sources say that Haven did all the vocals himself with intense vocal editing, where once again the complete vagueness on how he produced the vocals and the lack of any real conversation from him or anyone involved in his team, it really should be looked into. It just comes off really shady and suspicious to not even remotely talk about it when the song's blowing up to the level that it is. And really, the fact that he hasn't really made even a video or explanation talking about how the vocals turned out this way, it really is something that should be talked about. Again, he is really not helping in this case at all here, and really I'm more on the fence on this than I really should be, considering that as someone who's done production in the past, it really is something that could have just been done with vocoders or a generative source. Again, it's not exactly something that's new, a lot of artists have done this, but that's probably giving this more benefit of the doubt than it really does deserve, especially when all the vagueness around how this song got actually taken down, it really should be something that needs to be focused on. I mean, realistically, it's not just because of the AI vocal integration at all, if that's even a thing, considering that a lot of AI generated music is still sticking around on streaming platforms, much to our complete horror. I mean, seriously, we have 3 acts charting on smaller metric charts in R&B and country that are being completely ignored in this regard, and they really should be given a lot more attention and vitriol than they really have. But yeah, the takedown in general just suggests really something shady behind the scenes, and quite frankly, if Haven's able to get out of this downward spiral and actually prove that this song is organic and authentic, we could be in one spot, but as of now, I really don't feel like defending this. And it sucks too, because the song itself is really good. I would have easily embraced it otherwise, but all the baggage around it and the fact that this is just not really showing itself to be a really authentic song at all, it really does disappoint me, and quite frankly, I get big headaches even thinking about this, so yeah, let's just move on. And man, you have to give me a massive headache to be thankful to talk about dance pop here, a chart that quite frankly has no reason to exist at this point and gets more and more boring the more I think about it. I mean, at least we had some movements in a unique debut here, but otherwise it was just a complete dirge to get through. I mean, we had How It's Done by Huntrix at #1, Let You Go by Demi Lovato collapsing to 15, and Crushed by Zara Larsson jumping coming up big to 11 thanks to radio support. If that's it. If Billboard's not going to give this any sort of interesting movements, it's going to get as much recognition as it deserves. But hey, at least we have that unique debut being number 6, Spooky Scary Skeletons Undead Tombstone Remixes by Andrew Gold.
Spooky, scary skeletons speak with such a screech. You'll shake and shudder in surprise when you hear these zombies shriek.
Seeing this song chart here is absolutely hilarious, and quite frankly, it really does surprise me that nothing else from Halloween actually managed to chart here alongside this. But in this case, I mean, it's outright dance music, being a really well-beloved remix of the classic Andrew Gold song Spooky Scary Skeletons, which came out all the way back in 1996, right before his passing, and has seen the level of virality that it really is unfortunate that he's not alive to witness. And more interesting that this was a solid 21 years into his career after several pretty reasonable hits in the mid to late 70s. And really my guess here is that this was credited separately to the original, hence why the original track didn't really chart on the Hot 100 despite the fact that it had the numbers combined to actually do so. And it's all the more ironic because in the limited amount of Halloween staples that are actually getting traffic, I really did not care for this one at all. The original was already branded as a children's novelty song at best back in the 90s, and yeah, I absolutely agree there, but at least had the charm and the interesting vocals of Andrew Gold to really make it stand out on its own. I get why it's become a Halloween staple, but this remix meanwhile really turns it into the sort of dated and badly produced electro house that was dated even back in 2019, with some really muddy mixing, badly produced synths, and the sort of overall vibe that just feels like novelty rubbish at best. If you release this song nowadays, it would have blown up just as much on TikTok, and really, it's the sort of thing that I just do not have any interest in revisiting. I mean, for me, it's just a novelty song that feels like Savant's leftovers, and quite frankly, I have no real interest in revisiting this. Not terrible, and I can understand its place, but yeah, not for me. Next. But hey, it's at least a story on dance streaming, and honestly, that chart had a lot more interesting stuff going on than it had any reason to. I mean, outside of how it's done by Huntrix holding steady at number 1, we had Dracula by Tame Impala surging up to number 2, and I can expect this to actually stick around here considering it's getting some upwards momentum. That's really welcome. And also, we got the Spooky Scary Skeletons remix debuting unsurprisingly at number 5. Honestly, I don't expect it will last at all next week, and honestly, I'm not going to complain. Hell, Halloween also saw a lot of other revivals like Abracadabra by Lady Gaga at number 12, as well as Disturbia by Rihanna surging up to number 9. Again, neither of these are going to last at this spot, but they're not exactly something that I'm going to complain about sticking around. They're both really good. And on the other end, if it's going to knock down It's Okay I'm Okay by Tate McRae to 11, and also kick off Let the World Burn by Chris Gray Rebel and cried off the charts entirely, yeah, I'm not going to complain. Both those songs are not good, and any reason to put on some better tracks is more welcome for me. And on dance sales, again, no unique debuts here either, but we did see at least some things happen around here as well. Takedown by Huntrix for one is actually holding steady at the very top, although again, considering how much the movie is finally starting to lose traffic, I expect this will be a short-lived run. Hell, all we saw were the comebacks of 2 songs that just refused to die, with Your New Morning Alarm by Mark Rebele at 13 and Dancing Queen by ABBA at 15, alongside Fancy Shit by Sid and Taylor Renee surging up to number 10, a song that's having a remarkably stable run, and even though it has probably stalled out on radio at this point, the fact that it's actually getting this sort of run for another artist on Catch and Release, that's at least promising, and it's a very good song, not going to complain. Oh, and also Upside Down by Black Gryph0n and Baasik debuted at number 7 thanks to viral novelty. I really don't expect this will last. Honestly, not going to complain there considering the artists involved. And to finally end off, hey look, Mediabase Dance Airplay actually had things happen, including a bunch of relatively interesting debuts. Nice! And it gets better because, as I called last week, Superpowers by Telecast featuring Oaks managed to hit number 1. Now, I'm not going to complain, Telecast has really been overdue a number 1 hit for a while now, and considering it's one of their better tracks to date, I'm not going to complain about this sticking around at all. Really cool to see here, even if it won't last. But that's not all I picked up fast, because at number 2 we had Ocean by Calvin Harris and Jesse Reyes, a song that's actually sticking around somewhere. It's a shame that it's not on the main chart, but hey, considering that this might hit number 1 soon, I'm not going to complain. It's a great track. Hell, I could say the same thing about Forever by Illenium, Tom Grennan and Alno number 3, even if that song is nowhere near as good as the two above it. But hey, I'm not going to complain about Illenium getting a decent run. It's a solid song. Next is Crush by Zara Larsson at number 4, which honestly I'm amazed it's sticking around at all, considering it's a pop song that's getting pushed onto dance radio. But considering that her run's actually doing decently well and Midnight Sun's showing signs of virality, she might be having a second wind. Not going to complain. And it still kept it above Too Late by Shanks at number 5, which seems to be slowing down a little bit on spins, but I do expect it will jump up a little bit more in the next couple of weeks. Not going to complain. But what I expect will jump up above it even more is our first arrival to the top 10, and not the last time we'll talk about this guy here, Crazy by Miles, Lloyd and Bunt at number 6. A song that's actually surprisingly grown on me in recent weeks, so I'm not going to complain about it sticking around. But still, the meteoric rise of this song is really insane to me. I didn't expect it would be this big. And what likely caused this? Yep, it's the complete collapse of Tesla by Mal P down to number 7, where it seems like Dan's airplay is just as done with the song as the majority of the listening public. And considering it's one of Mal P's least interesting songs to get popular, I'm not going to complain about it finally leaving. It's stuck around way too long. But once you skip past Nobody Make Me Feel by Oscar Medkay featuring Khalid at number 8, which again is having a slower spin rise, but it is showing signs of growth, we got on to the second story of this week, and the first time that I think this has ever happened in the history of dance airplay, at least since the 40 song change in 2015. Yep, it's actually Spaces by Bunt, the Chainsmokers and Izzy Bizzle at number 9, where Bunt somehow has the honor of being one of the rare artists to chart multiple songs in the top 10 on dance airplay at the same time. I mean, I had my hesitancy about this rollout strategy considering how much Best Day of My Life just completely underperformed, but now I'm convinced that song was just a flop single, and the other two songs are actually sticking around a lot better than I think anyone expected. And hey, he might have struck gold by sheer luck, but hey, credit to him, he is at least showing some signs of sticking around from the States. Not going to complain too, the quality is absolutely there. Oh, and finally, Waterfalls by James Hype featuring Sam Harper and Bobby Harvey is down to number 10. Honestly, the fact that this didn't fall harder is kind of surprising to me, but yeah, we'll get to that later on. But what didn't stabilize came in our fall-offs, and honestly, the only notable one really to talk about here is State of Mind by Cascade and Lipless, which again, had a much better run than I think anyone expected. It will easily make the year-end list. Absolutely cool to see. And hell, if it's taking out Manchild by Sabrina Carpenter, which might just barely fall short of the top 100, yeah, not going to complain too much there either. But interestingly, a lot of our falls were actually in the bottom half of the charts here, with a few minor exceptions. I mean, we had Tesla by Mal P in the top 10, and Move a Little Closer by Dubs and Abby Flynn finally leaving at number 12. It took it way too long at this point. But outside of those, we had Wait So Long by Swedish House Mafia collapsing to 29. No, I'm not acknowledging the song title change, it's absolutely stupid. And the last three were female-led pop songs, with The Dead Dance by Lady Gaga losing hard down to 39, Golden by Huntrix at 47, and Jealous Type by Doja Cat at 50. Considering that I only really like only one of these, I'm not going to complain about these either. They've all had decent runs, but not exactly something that I want to see stick around on this format. Oh, and also the absolute nosedive of the AI trash that is All Night by Lucy down to 45. Ironic that it happened in this week, but considering how awful the track is and how more openly AI generated it is compared to I Run by Haven, I'm not exactly complaining about this losing either. It's absolute garbage. And just like our falls, the jumps didn't really give us a whole lot to really talk about. Considering that the spins actually stabilized pretty well across the board, the charts actually had some stability for once. And honestly, outside of Crazy in the top 10, we didn't really have any song here that I outright disliked at all. Come Find Me by MK featuring Clementine Douglas made a really nice jump up to 17 alongside Set Me Free by Armin van Buuren and Sasha at 21. Cool to see both of these getting momentum. And even Phases by Joel Corey featuring Abby Flynn actually jumped up to 34. Hell, it's nice to see an actual good Abby Flynn track get some momentum, and even if I don't like Move a Little Closer, if it leads to more songs from her getting traffic, I'm not going to complain that much, especially when it's as good as this song is. Hell, I think what's also telling is that Billboard had 0 debuts on their charts this week, which again makes it much easier to manage, but for me it's really revealing of a chart that's been remarkably stable, and considering how many songs that could have charted from pop Airplay's crossover into mix show, the fact that it's not getting as much momentum nowadays, that's really telling, and I'm not going to complain. But then moving over to Mediabase, thankfully one of the debuts here is a song that I've already covered, being Deep Clear Water by Gryph0n and Grizz of 42. I mean, cool to see Grizz get an actual radio push, but on a song that's really obviously made for radio, considering that Gryph0n is a radio darling there. But still, insane to see this here. Really cool to see, the song is great, and I'm glad that it's getting a run. But as for the rest, well, number 44, Don't Blame Me by James Carter. Okay, seriously, while James Carter has been completely fine across his charting songs here, I still don't think he's been able to really reach the potential he showed on Bad Memories with Medusa. And while I don't mind both 2 Days and Alive, I haven't really cared about either of them either. They're amongst the most forgettable songs that I've charted this year, which is really saying something for Dance Airplay. So to see him chart a song that stole the title from one of Taylor Swift's most iconic and infamous tracks that's gotten virality in recent weeks, yeah, that was worrying for me. And thankfully this is a little bit better than I expected, but it still has a lot of the same problems that James Carter does usually. Yes, I like the progressive house sound with a defined analog lead and a much more interesting use of sidechain than I think anyone expected, with the vocals kind of flowing really nicely into the drops in a way that does sound quite good. And I like the vocals themselves. They're not exceptional or anything, but they at least have some energy and personality behind them. I can at least understand why some people would be on board with this. But the problem outside of the song feeling ridiculously underdeveloped at only 2 minutes is the fact that, just like James Carter's other charting songs, this is insanely forgettable. I mean, I like the sound of this, but putting literally anything else on just makes this completely disappear from my brain immediately. It kind of explains why songs like Alive had no staying power on the charts. He's just got a bad habit of not really writing really good hooks here. I mean, it's not bad at all, honestly pretty decent, but yeah, the problems are still there, just saying. Number 43, Edge of Desire by Jonas Blue and Malive. Whereas if you want something that's not remotely surprising to see it chart here, honestly it feels weird that it's taken this long for this to actually cross over at all. This song's been getting a lot of traffic around the world with the sort of string momentum that you would not expect, especially from Jonas Blue, who's been really struggling to get any sort of hits in the last couple of years. Although with the sound of this leaning closer to the Afro house scene with a lot of summer ready atmosphere, where I can absolutely get why this would work in this current climate, it doesn't fully surprise me that this is here. And honestly, I like this a lot more than I expected. The guitars against a much more relaxed and beach-ready atmosphere create a really nice vibe that plays off the female vocal samples really well, where there's this world music influence that doesn't really surprise me from either act, especially from Jonas Blue, who's been embracing that since he got big in 2016. Honestly, it's not surprising that he went down this route, and it's a lot more authentic than I think anyone expected. And when the song just flows really nicely with not really many elements that hold back in conveying that beach-ready atmosphere, where I can see this being an absolute staple of Ibiza's live set, and that would not be a bad thing at all. Yeah, it absolutely makes sense why this is getting a lot of mainstream traffic, and even as someone who's had mixed opinions on Jonas Blue throughout his career, this was really solid for me. Really hope it gets a run. Really damn good song. And finally, number 38, Hello by Sigala, Leigh-Anne and Jonita, Gandhi. Topic of names I didn't expect to see chart here again. Honestly, this one feels a lot more surprising to me, considering that Sigala has not really had any sort of charting presence in the last couple of years on any real format. I mean, it's not really like he did anything wrong. I mean, the rollout for Every Cloud was absolutely terrible, and that's something that should absolutely be looked into as something to not do when it comes to EDM rollouts in the future. But it's probably more so just because the sound that he was going for really just went out of fashion once Tech House got a lot more popularity. It's really telling that that he hasn't really charted on Hot Dance in the last 2 years, and considering the quality has gone a little bit lower than it should, it really is not a bad thing in my books. But now he's back with a collaboration with Leigh-Anne out the UK and Jonita Gandhi, who is a Canadian Indian singer who's been getting a lot of traffic in India as of recently with over 17 million monthly listeners. Quite frankly, it doesn't surprise me that this gained a lot of traffic. And in this case, it just feels really disappointing to me because, man, this song is not good at all. I mean, I'm at least more on board with Sigala making Afro House because, at least in this case, he's platforming people of color on this song, and Leigh-Anne especially would really fit into this style. But seriously, Jonita Gandhi is an Indian singer. It does not work for her voice at all here. And when you get to the song itself, it's produced really haphazardly with vocal layering that is not remotely good at all, especially against the cheap sounding pianos and the percussion that just sounds really flat to me. I mean, isn't the whole vibe of Afro House meant to be something that you can relax and zone out to? Having vocal mixing this bad really does not work well for this track at all. And when it sounds as cheap as it does, I get a lot more comparisons to Say What by Ramper, and that's not a good thing at all. And just like with James Carter, this one has a severe problem of just being incredibly forgettable. I mean, it's not terrible because this scene doesn't really have the sort of songs that could get really actively annoying in the same way that Say What did back in the day. But for me, yeah, this was a complete miss for me, and seeing it get a mainstream push, it's really disappointing. And that ends a week that gave me a lot of splitting headaches for a lot of reasons, and really picking out the best here was a lot easier than I thought. I mean, I originally was going to give it to iRun, but given all the headaches and the complete drama around its release, I'm not going to do so. Instead, it's going to go to something that I didn't expect at all. I Want Things to Be Beautiful by Devi McCallion, a song that, quite frankly, I did not expect would even be as good as it is, and honestly turned out a lot better than I expected, with HARDSTYLE 2 by Fred Again, KETTAMA, and Shady Nasty as honorable runner-up. It's not one of the best songs from this USB re-release, but for me, it does the job well. It really does work for me. Shame it won't stick around, but hey, it leads to more next week. We could be looking into something promising here. As for the worst, God, I was really tempted to give it to Spooky Scary Skeletons Undead Tombstone remix by Andrew Gold, just on the fact that it's not remotely for me, but it still gets the edge over No BATIDAO by ZXKAI and slxughter, because even if it is one of the better tracks from the funk scene, it still has the exact same problems as a lot of tracks in this scene. It's still not good, let's be real here. Next week, outside of the unfortunate scenario that will lead to iRun actually surging up to the top 3, we could get multiple tracks from Fred Again charting here, including one that's going to likely debut really high and is looking like the sort of thing that's going to give me a lot more divisive views than I expected. But otherwise, I have absolutely no idea. Could be interesting at least, I'll give it that. But yeah, that's all for this episode of an analysis of dance. See you next time.